Season 3 of the United by Coffee podcast, where our mission is to unite the world through coffee. I'm Christy Ross, and I have a new co-host this season, Mr. Greg Hess, in the co-host chair. Thanks for joining me, Greg.
Hey, Christy. So excited to be here. So excited for our next guest.
And always like telling more about Greg, though, because there is a lot of good stuff to share. He is a wildly successful podcaster, writer, and comedian. We first met at my previous company, Tasty Trade, where he was part of the original creative team. And I just realized the other day that it literally is 13 years ago at this point.
Well, I've managed to age about 26 years in that time, and somehow you've stayed the same. So I'm not sure how that works, but must be good coffee.
You say all the right things, Greg. No wonder I love you as my co-host. Okay, so today I want to talk a bit about brands.
A bunch of brands come to mind when I do think about great brands. Patagonia is one, about actually buying something that lasts. That is a big thing for me, not just buying things that can be disposed of. I think about Kinto coffee tumblers. I've got one right here, just one that is. Are we twinning?
My water bottle. I got my Kinto water bottle.
Oh, that's cool. I don't have one of those. That's great.
I love it. And this comes off to fill, and then this top comes off to drink. Sorry. Okay, this is.
It's just like carrying a little piece of cool design around with you, and I love this. I love this company, and it keeps your coffee hot for days. And then another one that comes to mind is I have a friend that has a fairly young company called Better Booch, which is a kombucha company. And since we're talking, and Christy, you've met those folks. Do you have Better Booch with you?
Okay, swear to God, I'm not even kidding. I didn't even know you were going to say this.
Okay, cool. Better Booch. There you go.
I got it right here in my hand.
Friends Trey and Ashley Lockerbie have started an awesome kombucha company that you can, you're seeing everywhere, Whole Foods and things. But one of the things they do really well is they say gut health for the good life, and that combining feeling good with living a good life just always resonated with me. And so I love brands that sort of evoke, that you're doing something good for yourself or for somebody else while you're also enjoying something really nice.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Love all those brands you mentioned. And I hope one day when people think of U3 Coffee, they think of feeling connected like around the world, United by Coffee.
And I think they will. And then, so let's just mark this date. 13 years from now, we'll check back in and make sure that we delivered on that promise.
That is perfect. Well, today we have a coffee entrepreneur on the show that I have admired his brand from afar and up close for a number of years. I love Chicago. I love coffee. I love brands that make me feel strong and make me feel like I can tackle the world. And I feel like his brand exemplifies all of that for me. Introducing this guest is an honor for me today. His name is Tim Coonan, founder of Big Shoulders Coffee. Welcome, Tim. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Christy. I'm so excited to be here.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to provide a little bit of background on you, Tim.
Okay.
You've been in hospitality for like 35 years, and you were a chef in New York, France, and Italy, like very cool. Restaurants like Spiaggia
and Chicago.
And P.F. Chains. Yes, right here. And so many more. And now you've been in coffee for over 14 years.
Yeah, I worked in a lot of kitchens for a long, long time, learned a lot about hospitality and quality and the mechanics of working with a team to create something really special in a short period of time and with a very small margin of error. So was really lucky to have worked in some really, really very nice high quality restaurants, worked for some great chefs that taught me a lot.
So while it's good about being in the right place at the right time, it's also about what you do after that, right? I mean, you put in the hard work, you made sure you performed well and all of that. So obviously, great opportunities, but it's all about that hard work too.
Well, I have to admit, I'm a little bit jealous that you cornered the market on the name Big Shoulders, because I always thought that would be such a cool band name or something if you were from Chicago.
Right?
But do you have to? Yeah, I know it's rad. Do you find the need that you have to explain the name when you're traveling outside of Chicago to farms? Yeah. And is it a good conversation starter?
It's a great conversation starter. They start out with, "Oh my gosh, I thought you'd be like this big bulky muscle guy or something." I don't know.
Well, culinary to coffee, it makes a lot of sense to me. But how did you decide to design and launch a full-fledged coffee brand? What took you from your background in food and culinary?
Well, I've always been culinary curious. I had been a home coffee roaster for many, many years, and so I did work in coffee in my late teens, and then I went off to really get serious about pursuing a career as a chef, and that's when I went to France and Italy and worked there. But I would take green coffee home on the weekends and kind of goof around with it and put it in a saute pan or a wok and play around with it in an oven and have really bad results. Yeah.
Or start a fire. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. So, but you think back, I don't know, 150 years ago, people did this in their homes. They roasted coffee. And again, it probably wasn't, it was drinkable, sure, but it probably wasn't as good. there's no way it was this good. And it certainly wasn't consistent because the equipment that we roast on now allows us to be really precise and consistent with the results, and to really dial in and explore and celebrate the farmers that are doing way more work than we're doing.
Yeah, that's so true. So I want to talk a little bit more about the development of the brand in a certain sense. You did talk about kind of how you came up with the name, but I want to know how you were so lucky that was even available. Like, did you have to buy it from someone, or was it actually available?
So yeah, as soon as I thought of it, I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's it. So the development of the brand was really, my wife and I started the business, and we love coffee, and we love coffee as a catalyst for what it can do for couples and communities. It really, coffee houses, cafes, historically have been places where people gather and they conspire and create revolution and enjoy a really wonderful beverage. 12, 15, 18 years ago in Chicago, the kind of cafes that existed were not the kind of cafes that really embraced hospitality and a sense of service. And we really saw an opportunity in the marketplace to bridge what we were doing at places like Spiaggia, and making it about the guest. So really the whole idea of this is it starts at the back door of a restaurant every morning when the chef, as the chef, I would get there and I'd be the first one there, and the first thing I'd do is grab a cup of coffee and I'd walk around the perimeter of the restaurant, make sure everything was closed well and everything's clean and neat and organized, and kind of check the walk-ins and kind of begin to get a plan for the day. And then I'd post up towards my desk near the back door, and as the cooks are starting to arrive, it gives me an opportunity to welcome them and look them in the eye, make sure they're ready to go. So hospitality is so we think of hospitality in terms of internal hospitality and external hospitality. So external hospitality is more obvious, right? It's the person walking in the front door. It's the person that we put our best face on for, and we pay attention, and we're alert, and we're attentive, and we're caring for them, right? Internal hospitality is a little more abstract and a little more nuanced. So if we're not prepared to care for each other, then we sure as heck aren't going to be able to succeed in giving the guest a good experience. So that's really the genesis of hospitality for us and what we think about.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell, like, you just put people first, whether it's employees or the end customer, and just walking into any one of your cafes, you get that feeling. They're bright and I just love the look and feel, but I also love how you feel very welcomed when you walk in. It's a happy place.
Thank you. I mean, we work really hard at that, and that's really awesome that you take notice of that, Christy. I mean, we certainly fail. We have but we want to fail forward. I mean, that's always kind of one of the things we talk about. I mean, failure as humans, we're fallible beings, and it's really the only way we can learn is by making mistakes. Right. And so we make mistakes and we talk about them. And so it's really having the courage to confront those situations and use them as an opportunity to move forward and fail forward, like we talk about.
Right.
Well, I mean, I love to hear about challenges and hiccups and mistakes, especially early on in the business, because, I mean, 14 years ago in Chicago, I would say, when I lived there, I was there 14 years ago, and, Intelligentsia comes to mind as one of the early, early players, obviously. But, Chicago coffee culture was still in its early stages. What were the things 14 years ago when you started the business that you didn't plan for, that were the hiccups, that were the false starts that you saw as you were trying to get going?
Well, we made tons of mistakes. Way back then, I used to think we were one or two mistakes away from closing the door permanently. Fortunately, we have probably a little bit more leeway today, probably 30 or 40 mistakes, and that's a pretty bad day for anybody. But
Sure.
But that's kind of that's the sort of pressure that I put on myself, and I still do. I hold myself to a very high level of execution across the board with all things: product, leadership, communication, cleanliness, sanitation. I mean, just all those things. We never wanted to be just this little cafe on the corner. That's how we started out, and open to close. I was there, well, more than open to close, but I was there every day, and I showed up, and I didn't have all the answers. And you don't have to have all the answers, right? You just
Right.
showing up and being available is the most important thing. So, and I mean, being an entrepreneur it is scary. You are on your own, no safety net, and just pushing boulders just all day long. So we did some things right, but we did them right just by keeping it simple. So really, the coffee always, and to this day, coffee is second or third. And people are shocked to hear me say that. Coffee comes well after guests and employees. We're a people company.
That is actually really powerful. So I have one more question sort of on this, I'll call it, people philosophy, right? Like this, it's really hard as a leader to teach that and have it carry all the way through to the person, servicing the customer time and time again, because this industry, there's high turnover. How do you make sure that every single employee that comes in the door is carrying out your vision and what you believe needs to happen?
I think it comes down to hiring hard. When I was a chef, I used to get these people that would come in and they would have a resume a mile long and expect me to hire them. And they were the worst kind of potential employee.
I totally agree with that, by the way.
So because they
That's
had
why Christy hired me, to be honest. I didn't have a good resume, but she was like, "It seems like you'll try."
So we hire on appetite. Just like you've got to have some grit and some humility. I'd say that's probably where it stops. Where the start stop thing is, where we don't want to hire. That's how I portray myself. I mean, I'm gritty, and I've got a good dose of I've eaten a lot of humble pie in my life, so I kind of know my place. So, but we don't want to hire people like me. We want to hire alternative perspectives and experiences and voices that are willing to contribute in a positive way. So it's a hiring hard and listening and making quick decisions. Like, oh man, oops, bad hire. This is not going to work out. So we've got a pathway of 30, 60, 90 to success. And we're, sorry to say, we're either working in one of two directions. We're working towards success or we're working towards exit. Like, so that's just how it is.
Yeah, it's that hire slow and fire fast, right? And one thing I'll mention too, just to put an exclamation mark on it, is hiring people with the right attitude. I will hire someone with a positive attitude all day long over someone who checks all the boxes, right?
Yeah.
It's that person who says, I want to come in and make a difference. I want to lock arms with everybody else and make things happen. That person I will literally hire all day long. Yeah. So I totally get that philosophy, and I agree with you. I think that's really, truly where this starts is hiring, right?
On the coffee side of things, Tim, I wanted to ask about precision roasting, because to get into the nitty gritty of you going from roasting coffee beans in a wok to now having really great coffee. Did that sort of idea come up from being a chef and really wanting this very high standard of roast and consistency, or fill me in on just on the coffee side too, because of course that's what we're all drinking.
So yeah, there's a bit of a disconnect in the industry with getting excited about innovation and new ways of brewing and new coffee cultivars or varietals that are emerging, competition coffees. Yeah, certainly those are really awesome coffees and they're delicious, but a $15 or an $18 a pound green coffee isn't for everybody.
I love that, because this speaks to me and my wallet, where it's like sometimes I want to try some really rare coffee at the counter of a high-end cafe, but on the day-to-day, I need something that I can make at home and make it taste good and that I can afford. Yeah. So I think that's really nice to hear from someone who sells a lot of coffee, that it's not always just about pushing the price or the rare or the inaccessible, because at the end of the day, we want coffee to be accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think that's one of the things I realized too as I entered the coffee industry, is that big disconnect. Like, from, whether it's the farms and the coffee entrepreneurs, the roasters, and the end customer. There's this massive sort of education gap, but it's also a preference gap. It's and there is this bridge that needs to happen, but nobody should force that on the end customer. You've received some high scores though from Coffee Review, and have also entered other coffee competitions like US Coffee Championships and Golden Bean, where you won the overall award. So congratulations on that. Talking about, award-winning coffees here. Awards, I kind of feel are, in my mind, like an independent evaluation and validation. So my question is have these awards actually helped you recruit good talent, or maybe helped you acquire more customers?
We get a 90 plus score from Coffee Review, and I'm really unsure what to do with that. We'll put it out on X or Instagram or something like that, and we'll see some sales that it generates, and it does. So that's kind of one type of customer. So we've got a few different channels of customer. We've got grocer, we've got restaurants and food service. We've got our own online sales, and those are three very different customers with three very different appetites for spending money. Just like Robusta serves a purpose and is going to serve a purpose. I don't even get me started on Robusta. But
Greg, have you had Robusta at all? Greg, have you?
I have had it, yeah.
You've tried it? Okay.
What's the knock?
Curious.
Of course
Yeah.
we've had it, because we drove across country, and we stopped at Speedway
Yes.
gas station at 2 a.m. and yes, okay.
And you know what? My wife would drink
generalizing.
diner coffee all day long.
I'm told that there are some fine Robustas out there. I just haven't been lucky enough to find them yet. I did recently have some Robusta that it's not Arabica. Arabica is going to be pressured in the next 25 years, and we're probably moving toward extinction unless we figure some stuff out. But Robusta is going to serve a purpose, because similarly to, and I'm making the comparison of fine Guatemalan coffee versus a Brazilian coffee, and we're talking about Arabicas there. But there's a purpose for those coffees, and a position.
And is the pressure on Arabica because of climate change?
Yes.
But isn't it crazy how most people don't even realize the fragile nature of its existence. Yes. I think that was a shocker to me too, because it's such a big part of my day. And when I entered the coffee industry, it was sort of like a what moment for me, like, oh my God.
Yeah, the supply chain is very brittle, and for a variety of reasons. I mean, certainly the environmental pressures that farming puts on the soil, the need for inputs like fungicides and herbicides, but also because of some of the social things that are happening in these countries where young people don't want to do that. And I think one of the things we need to do is figure out a way. It's hard work. I don't care if you're an Indiana corn farmer or a Iowa soybean farmer or a coffee farmer in Colombia. It's hard work. I think we need to figure out a way to incentivize economically with money, incentivize farmers to do this work. And I do not have the answers. I've read enough to make me extremely dangerous, but the facts are this ridiculous antiquated sea market way of coffee needs to go away, and we need to look at coffee in a very, very different way, and we need to incentivize. Coffee can be cheap, it can be fair in some cases, and it can be good, it can be delicious, but it's not going to be all three, and certainly not at the same time. And we need to find a way to reward farmers that are doing really hard work, and pay a fair price for that.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point, and I think that, as someone who drinks a lot of different kinds of coffee, but I don't always know what I'm drinking, or why I'm paying the price I'm paying for it. I think it's a good reminder that if you really think about the work that goes into getting that great cup of coffee, it's a good reminder of the consumer, that someone who loves coffee, that it's okay to pay for that great taste that you've experienced, rather than always sort of griping about, oh my gosh, my bag of coffee went up $2 at the grocery store or whatever.
Right.
Well,
yeah.
we don't complain at all about a $18 shot of really wonderful 100% agave blue, Weber blue tequila from the Highlands that's additive free, or a 10-year-old bourbon or scotch. We don't make those same complaints. And coffee is, and I certainly am not one of those kind of people that wants to push this idea that coffee is a fine beverage. Coffee is a delicious beverage, and it should be more than $2.
Yes, yeah. Except for the Robusto at the Quick Stop.
I'm not going to put a price on that one.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, priceless. Well, I did want to ask, when you're looking for a really amazing cup of coffee, what are you looking for, or what would you tell a consumer, that is seeking an amazing cup? What are some of the things that you look for when you're tasting coffee? Anything jump to mind?
Yeah, so I'm going to say something super corny,
Yeah.
and the best cup of coffee is the one that brings us together. And
I love that.
It's true.
really,
That's so true.
I really
Put it
believe
on a
that.
T-shirt.
I really
There's some
believe
marketing.
One more thing on the coffee industry, and then I actually want to jump into some really, I'll call them like sort of more rapid fire questions here about your coffee preferences. But
Okay.
is there, if there's one thing you could change in the coffee industry, what would that be?
Let's get rid of this stupid idea of roast dates being important. Certainly, if you're brewing espresso, you want an aged coffee, but this notion of coffee being fresh and so I'm doing a little bit of testing right now we had a coffee that we roasted about a month ago that I hated a month ago, and I tried it last week and I thought it was amazing. So some of these coffees, they post roast, they develop. They take time to develop. I mean, roasting is this violent activity that really changes the chemicals and the composition and the cellulose. It burns off certain attributes of the coffee itself and the carbohydrates and whatnot. Coffee is this thing that it's living, it's breathing, it's changing and evolving, and certainly it depends on what we ate prior to consuming it. If you had a Chicago hot dog. That coffee,
That's what I always drink with my coffee. I stir my coffee with a Chicago hot dog.
it tastes very different. Coffees evolve over time, and that's really interesting, especially some of these coffees, like these thermo-shocked or treated coffees. So Colombia's got just so many really innovative and interesting things. I think Colombia is the most interesting origin at the particular moment. There's some young people doing some really interesting work. They're also doing some kind of weird stuff that the jury's still out on, co-fermented stuff. It's like one step shy of Gloria Jeans, of the mall from yesteryear.
Oh my gosh, that's like a flashback.
And
I know.
you'll
Gosh.
like walk past the Gloria Jeans, and I love Gloria Jeans. Don't get me wrong. That was like an entry point for coffee for me. Just like White Zinfandel, Sutter Home White Zinfandel was an entry point for wine for me.
For all of us, Tim. For all of us.
Thankfully, tastes have developed.
One of the things I have to point out, which I think is really interesting, when you talked about the coffee changing over time. I mean, it's like wine, and we only had like one other roaster actually say that on the show, was talking about how they wanted to just get rid of the idea of the roasting date or expiration date or whatever you want to call it, right? Like, because there's this window. And it feels like it really depends on the coffee.
And I had a question about that. Do you think that the roast date importance, did that start out as a utilitarian thing to just keep track of roasting date and somehow translate it to customers as being very important, almost as if, when we started putting, bottling dates on bourbon and things like that? Was it something that was borrowed from the alcohol industry that somehow became the forefront of our minds as being an important date to have on a coffee bag?
I think I'm leaning your way, Greg.
Yeah, I've never thought about it, but it's something that when I look at coffee, I'm like, oh, the roast date. But you're totally right. Like when it comes to drinking it, I'm just thinking about how it tastes.
Yeah. I mean, it's counterintuitive, but fresh coffee is not good.
Yeah.
So it seems like, oh my gosh, this just came out of the roaster. Let's brew it, and it's not going to be good.
Well, listen, I am actually going to shift this to a very quick rapid fire questions,
All right,
okay?
let's
Just
go.
to wrap this up, because I know we only have a couple minutes here. How about sharing a coffee tip for coffee consumers? Like something they should know, or something, they can do at home when they're brewing themselves, anything, any kind of tip.
Invest in a grinder. Spend the majority of your money on a grinder. So don't get obsessed with buying a average espresso machine for your home and a crummy grinder. Buy a really good grinder. Go deep on a grinder, and then find a really simple brewing method like Chemex or whatever that doesn't cost a lot, but put your money in the grinder.
Do you have a recommendation on a grinder or a brand, or you don't want to go there?
Without endorsing anybody, I was given a pine cone from G&H Grinders, G&H Grinding Solutions. I think they're out of North Carolina. Really like them. They're good folks. So been testing out a pine cone for possible use in our cafes as a decaf grinder. I've been using it at home. When I found out how much it cost, it's under $400. Really fantastic grinder, really good size burrs and motor on it. It instantly made me a better home brewer.
What is your favorite Big Shoulders blend or single origin? Like, what's it called? Because Greg and I are going to want to try this.
We're drinking this Manos de Mujer coffee from Colombia right now, from Tolima, a cooperative owned by 100 plus women farmers. It's a feel-good story, which I like, but it's actually, I never wanted to guilt people into buying our coffee. So I didn't want to have organic or fair trade or anything, whatever it was, whatever certification it was, without having actually some value to it. So it's got to taste good. So this coffee, so we've really worked hard to figure out a way to with this coffee to move the needle for women farmers. So nice. I think this is a group that has been given less opportunity at Origin, and we're committed to it, and we're trying to move the needle as far as that goes. So it's a delicious coffee. It's really delicious. Medium roast. So I drink it all day long. This is what I probably drink the most of. It's a chuggable, delicious coffee.
So what is the actual name of it? So like on the bag, if we went online or we went into your store, what's the name of it? There we go. Perfect.
Awesome.
Manos de Mujer.
Awesome. Thank you.
Manos de Mujer.
No, that is perfect.
Yeah.
We're going to have to try that for sure. I call this the U3 top 3. Your favorite brewing method?
I love the sock. So it's cloth, pretty common in a lot of Latin American countries or Central American countries, Guatemala and Costa Rica, and it sits on a ring. It's got a little handle on it, and I mean lovingly call it the sock. It's not literally a sock, but it is a cloth bag that it brews great coffee.
Big
awesome.
Shoulders,
right.
Big Shoulders socks. You should make some Big Shoulders socks and sell them in the cafe. There's another piece of free marketing.
Okay, marketing. Okay, thanks.
That is perfect, Greg. Greg, you are adding value with every question.
I'm just saying, Big Shoulders. If it said Big Shoulders on a pair of socks, that's a great conversation starter.
For sure. All right, your coffee drink of choice. Is it just black? Is it latte? Is it a specific origin or wash?
Whenever I go into a cafe, whether it's ours or another brand's, I order 2 drinks. I order a cortado, and I order a drip coffee.
Okay.
So my preference is for black filter coffee.
Okay. And how many cups of coffee or tea or drink of choice do you have per day?
I probably have 10 cups of coffee a day.
Does that include cupping?
No, it does not.
Oh, you seem so chill, Tim. I'm not sure how.
I consume a lot of coffee. Yeah.
Well, Tim, thanks so much for talking with us. We want to give you the opportunity to share where someone can just learn more about Big Shoulders or whatever you're up to. So where can people find you?
Well, a great place to go would be our website, bigshoulderscoffee.com. And our one-person team of Andy does a really great job of telling a story and sharing with people about our brand. So there's a lot of stuff there about our origin and some of the exciting things we're doing, and it's a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, Tim. This has been awesome. And be sure to check out Big Shoulders, everyone. Definitely worth your time. So thank you again, Tim. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Kristen. Greg, thank you so much.
So that was an awesome conversation with Tim. I could have kept going for sure. Was there anything, Greg, that jumped out to you in particular about everything?
So many things jumped out to me about what Tim said, but the main thing is invest a little money in a great grinder, which I'm always looking at coffee gadgets and machines and things like that, thinking about buying an espresso machine for home. But you know what? I think I'd have to put my money in a good grinder.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know why more people aren't talking about grinders. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you, hands down. All right. Well, that is awesome. That's a good wrap.
That's a great tip. Well, thanks so much to our followers, and we want to hear from you. You can always reach out to us at connect@u3coffee.com, or just in the comments, give us some guest recommendations or your best coffee tips and tricks. We want to know what you're drinking, and so hit us up there.
Again, that's connect@u3coffee.com, or head to the letter U, the number 3, coffee.com, where you can learn more, connect, and explore the wonderful world of coffee. We'll see you next time.